Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Gorman, owner of Creative Computing, Princeton's only Apple specialist store, located at 423 Wall Street across from the Princeton Airport. Welcome to our show, Apple Talk by Creative Computing. Here we discuss everything Apple, from products to software, even technical issues. Today we're going to start off with the biggest news in Apple land, the Trojan. This Trojan came to everybody as a fake flash upgrade. Pretty much it's gone at this point. To see if you have it, you can go to flashbackcheck.com and it will tell you right off. Very easy to do. Apple has released a removal tool for it, which you can download from their website or will come free to you from Software Update. It will remove it from anyone with Snow Leopard or Lion, 10.6 or 10.7, automatically. If you have an older OS, Apple recommends disabling Java. You can find removal steps manually online. And if you want to prevent yourself from getting this on an older system, or in general, if something tells you need an update, like software update from Apple or Microsoft or whatever, and you're not sure if it's fake, look at the list of what they tell you need, then go to the website directly yourself and pull down the correct installer. That's guaranteed. If you don't need an update, that method will let you know right off. If you do, you'll get the same update you would have gotten from the automatic software update. It's all fine. In the case of the Mac OS, you can go to Apple Menu Software Update and choose that. As long as you deliberately chose it, it will not be faked. The only way you're going to see any one of these fakes come, and again, there's hardly any, it's almost no risk, it's barely worth mentioning, but the only way that you would see it is on a website that you visited. And last detail about this, according to Symantec, the number of infected Macs has dropped so significantly they don't even consider it significant any longer. That's our update on the Flashback Trojan. Next, Apple's market share, IDC and Gartner show the Mac share just over 10% and growing. It's the highest Apple's ever been as a percentage of, the Mac has ever been as a percentage of the overall computer market, and it's growing, and it's the only one growing at this point, and it's the fastest one growing. It's down slightly, the growth rate from last year, but it's higher than this quarter was last year. The slight decline right now is attributed to there not being any hardware refreshes for a while, which mostly comes from, rumors are that Apple is waiting for Sandy Bridge, Intel's new chip with the integrated graphics capability that should be out. I thought it was just released. So rumors are very strong that there'll be new Macs coming. Mountain Lion is slated for early summer. We predict, and it's just our prediction, that these will be simultaneous. That goes with our mention last time of Retina display possibly on the MacBooks, would fit very well. So we're expecting a whole bunch of refreshes soon. This growth of Apple makes Apple the number 3 computer maker at this time, behind only HP and Lenovo. Catching up. Remember, everybody thought Apple was going away? Most valuable company in the world. Last year, Apple sold more iPads than all PCs combined. It's a pretty amazing statistic. It's too early to tell if that will be repeated this year, but so far it's kind of looking that way. Apple stores, the retail stores that you see, and ours too, outsell any other retail store nationally. And not just outsell, the closest one, Apple, is 17 times bigger per square foot in retail volume. It's an amazing thing. 17 times. You know how much that is? It'd be interesting to see compared on a local level with the supermarket, because everybody goes there many times a week. The iPhone. The demand has grown since the 4S. The 4S has been out only a few months, right? A few months. Demand has grown even since the introduction of that. 56% of people who plan to buy a smartphone in the next 90 days plan to buy an iPhone. That's just huge. Nokia is still the biggest phone maker by volume, but they had such a huge head start, and they're having a huge decline. Apple, again, is leading all the growth. On the iPhone, some marketing company shows that the number of ad impressions coming from the iPhone has increased past Android. Google made Android as a vehicle for ads, according to Larry Page. Larry Page just recently said he's not sure Android is even crucial to Google. Its main function was as a vehicle for ad delivery. And Apple is now selling more ads than Google is with Android. Pretty amazing statistic. Apple just goes and goes and goes. Some rumors relating to the iPhone. There's a rumor of Apple having a low-end iPhone coming out to compete with cheap Android phones. Right now, to buy an unlocked 3GS is still about $375. That's a lot of money. If Apple had like a $100 phone with some limited capabilities, it could do really well. So we'll see. It's all just rumors. Another new rumor, the new iPhone coming out, the iPhone 5, may use something called liquid metal. Apple bought all the patents from a company that makes something called liquid metal and is expected to use it in the iPhone 5. The metal is stronger, lighter, more scratch resistant than anything else on the market. It has a little bit of flexibility to it. Supposedly, best thing ever, which is why Apple bought all the patents. On the iPhone, the carriers are expanding. Apple has signed just recently with 5 regional carriers, including Alaska Communications, just for example. But the point of it is Apple is making efforts wherever they can to expand the reach of the iPhone, get it into every market, allow it to compete with every other phone maker's platforms on every other carrier. So I think we're going to see more and more iPhone growth in market penetration. And it still remains the most popular consumer product in history. Apple recently put the iPhone on their business store. It focuses on the business uses of the iPhone on their website, which are organization, things like scheduling and contacts, project management, which is like remote meetings, WebEx, etc., facilitating travel, report viewing, scheduling. It just shows Apple, again, showing how the iPhone can do just about anything. They're putting it in the spots where business owners would look at it, and IT departments of larger corporations, considering the iPhone rather than BlackBerry or any of the other competitors, which are all declining in this world of the iPhone. I run creative computing solely with my iPhone. I can do anything I needed to do anywhere. I can order products, access our database, you name it, I can do it with the iPhone. I've even rebooted our server from the beach. That's a true story. Continuing on, the iPad. Not a lot of iPad news today. Intel and Microsoft are hoping Windows 8 can push the iPad under 50% of market penetration. I can't imagine it happening. Windows remains lucky to boot. We'll see. Good luck with that one. Department of Justice lawsuit. The last time I spoke about this, the DOJ was suing Apple over book pricing. That's still going on. A bunch of publishers have thrown their support behind Apple. Macmillan quotes the lawsuit as too onerous. And a number of publishers have settled with the Department of Justice. Don't know the status yet, but that's the current update. A little fact I read. Thanks to today's mass appeal and accessibility, on a daily basis, humans produce 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. That's a huge, huge amount of data every single day. And the growth rate is so high that 90% of all the information ever created was produced in the last 2 years. That's phenomenal. And at least it's on the internet and safe now. Sometimes I look at what people have done in the past, like the example I always think of is destroying Alexander the Great's library. It's just ridiculous what people do to ourselves. So I'm pleased to see that information is on the internet and we're producing more and more of it, and this time it can't be destroyed. Continuing on, MacBook Pro. Rumors are about an updated MacBook Pro coming using Intel's Ivy Bridge technology. The Ivy Bridge chip was officially launched by Intel on April 22nd, yesterday. It provides a lot of big speed improvement and integrated graphics right on the chip. It should allow for faster graphics processing than chips previously did allow. It also has integrated USB 3. Prior to this, to get USB 3, you needed a separate add-on chip of some sort in your computer, which is why supposedly Apple never adopted USB 3 or has been waiting for it. Most likely you will see USB 3 ports on your next MacBook, if this proves to be true, although it still comes nowhere close to Thunderbolt. I mean, Thunderbolt far and away is the fastest port ever connected to any computer. Apple is expected to still sell a separate graphics chip if you need that kind of performance, because you can still get better graphics from a separate dedicated processor than you can from the processor on board the Ivy Bridge chip. It's also expected that with Mountain Lion will be the release of Ivy Bridge computers. Every company, Apple of course will lead. There will be MacBook Pros and iMacs as the rumor goes. I'm coming to the iMac in a moment. Another analyst just on the MacBook Pro sees the discontinuing of the 17-inch MacBook Pro. I read today that they've sold 3-point-something million 13-inch MacBook Pros, like 1.5 million 15-inch MacBook Pros, and like 50,000 of the 17s. And I think our sales would match that proportionally. We've sold a few, but it's really not the most popular machine. Another analyst sees a merging of the MacBook Pro and the MacBook Air, meaning taking the optical drive out of the MacBook Air, making it a little bit thinner, but it would still have a hard drive because of the storage. You still can't get a lot of storage on an SSD drive at a price point that would sell to the masses. It's still very expensive. I do think the optical drives are going to go. Apple was first to kill the floppy. Everybody thought that was a bad idea. I think Apple's going to kill the CD-ROM as well. And just as a little side note, we noticed that they took iDVD off of the new Macs. When you buy a new Mac, you no longer get iDVD. Of course, the Finder and Disk Utility and iMovie and things like that can still burn, but the iDVD authoring software is gone. Another little detail related to the MacBook Pro that is interesting is Apple is trying to hire a battery engineer. Batteries are batteries. They do better in the Macs because the Mac OS does a better job charging the batteries than, say, Windows does. Windows, the battery is good for about 6 months, and that's it. And that's not due to poor batteries, it's due to poor charging software. Apple has good batteries and good charging software. But nonetheless, the hiring of a battery engineer shows how Apple is trying to optimize every last bit of that computer. The Retina displays, the batteries, thinner, everything they can do to make the Mac a better device and more saleable. So it'd be interesting to see. Apple could invent a new battery, the iBattery. Along the lines of updates, rumors are about strong for an updated iMac coming. My guess is also at this summer with the release of Mountain Lion. Also, the new iMac will also have Sandy Bridge processors. And here's an interesting one. Supposedly, Apple has contracted with a supplier to make non-reflective glass, which should allow the iMac to be seen from more angles. If you're using your giant 27-inch iMac as a television, it's nice to have non-reflective glass so that the angles that you sit at are all good. So it could lead on to Apple actually making a television, although I still think the iMac and the little Apple TV with a cable card remains the better choice, as I've spoken about in our previous shows. Another thing that's had a lot of rumor of late is the touchscreen. I read that Steve was against the touchscreen, although that was before the iPad came out and showed that it was good. The thing with the computer, though, is if you have a touchscreen, like picture an iMac here right in front of me, and I'm trying to touch the screen, gravity, that gets tiring. I don't think you could use it as an interface all day long. It would just get too tiring. That's why the keyboard's down here, where you can sit and type and you can use your mouse. I think that a touchscreen would not be a good idea. It makes sense as an add-on for a Mac, where you put something over your Mac and you have a touchscreen if you're using it like a kiosk at the airport or something, where you don't want the keyboard and the mouse and people are standing in front of it anyway. But for tabletop use, I don't think touchscreen is ever going to be the way. What else? Mountain Lion news. The third developer seed was just released this weekend. A lot of bug fixes, a lot of new bugs, but that's how it always is with developer seeds. One thing I read that I thought was interesting is Apple is building in a unique password generator. When you go somewhere on your computer, like a website or whatever, it needs a password, there will be a button there where it will generate a nice, unique password for you, store it, and then auto-issue it going forward, so you don't have to remember your passwords. The only password, if you use this technology thoroughly, the only password you would need to remember is the password to actually log into your computer, which would be worth setting if the computer is going to auto-issue all your other ones. You don't want to get your computer stolen and give the bad guy access to your bank account and everything else. But a nice auto password generator would be a very good addition to the Macintosh. iCloud, going along with that, supposedly will sync your passwords across all of your devices. So if you do make a password on your Mac, you can log into the bank from your iPad and still get in. Very nice. They did have keychain syncing for a while with Mobile Me. It didn't work super well. And they actually took it out near the end of Mobile Me, and they did not include it in iCloud. Rumors are, or reason purported, is that Apple was improving the whole password storing generating mechanism and that it will be back very shortly, and again, probably with Mountain Lion. Business sales. Apple and some analysts are predicting lots of business sales, largely due to the Apple TV as a nice add-on for the Macintosh. With the Apple TV, with its 1080p output and wireless screen sharing, you can have your MacBook at a presentation or something, or your iPad at a presentation, and an Apple TV connected to the display unit, no wires, and you can control a slideshow remotely. Very nice. It makes your presentation look much fancier than anybody using any other brand of hardware. Okay, continuing on. A little bit of Steve Jobs news. I just read that Steve tried to hire Linus Torvalds. Linus is the guy who invented Linux, named it after himself. Steve wanted him to work on Mac OS X, and this was before OS X was released, before 10.0. Steve had a couple requirements for Linus, though, and Linus said no. Steve required Linus to stop working on Linux and devote his efforts only to Mac OS X. Linus didn't like that, and the other thing Linus didn't like was he wasn't a big fan of the mock kernel, it's called, built into Mac OS X. Can't say why not, but nonetheless, Linus doesn't work for Steve. Someone else said it might have been a conflict in that Linus was very much, this is how it has to be done, just like Steve, and you can only have one boss. So who knows how that would have worked out, but it would be interesting. And had Steve gotten Linus, whether or not he let him work on Linux, there'd be a lot less server competition out there right now. It would have been an interesting thing to see. Next topic, multiple Apple IDs. Many of you have multiple Apple IDs. I know I do. I have two. People have Apple IDs for different reasons historically. Sometimes they started off with one Apple ID to share iTunes with their family members, and then as different needs have come up, you wind up with multiple Apple IDs in your family, or sometimes you have one, then your wife needs one, now you both have one, but you're sharing them both, whatever. Apple recognizes the issues with having multiple IDs, and now that Apple's also trying to use your email address as the ID, they recognize that having multiple IDs and no way to change them or combine them is proving to be a hassle. So they have posted recently advice on how to manage multiple IDs, but I've read online that a number of people have been contacted by Apple when they've complained about this and have been told that Apple's working on it. I have two Apple IDs. One I had because I shared my MobileMe account with a bunch of people, and then I had a bunch of other Apple accounts, being an Apple dealer, that I needed my own private ID for. With the advent of iCloud and the ability to share the calendar, I no longer need multiple Apple IDs because I can share what I need to share without sharing my Apple ID. So as soon as they have this, I am going to combine mine because I'd rather only have one. It's easy to remember. Moving on, software news. Snow Leopard. Yes, I know Snow Leopard is old. If you still have MobileMe, Apple would like you to go to iCloud. Of course, to go to iCloud, you need to have Lion. What if you're still on Leopard? People are resisting buying all of the software. So Apple has recently, just last week I think, allowed you, if you have MobileMe, to get a free copy of Leopard. All you have to do is log into your MobileMe account, and you'll see a link in there, and you can get a free copy of Leopard. They will send you the disk. The idea being you then upgrade your computer to Leopard and move on to Lion and iCloud. Do keep in mind that at some point in June, I think it's the 26th, MobileMe will be shut down. And if you have any data on your iDisk or haven't moved to iCloud, you will lose it. So make sure you get your data off of your iDisk, certainly. And iCloud, very nice, very easy upgrade. I highly recommend it. Microsoft Office 2011. Office is very nice on the Mac. I don't know why they don't do as good a job on the Windows equivalent, but in my opinion, the Mac version of Microsoft Office is very nice. They just released SP2, Service Pack 2 from Microsoft Office. It seems to be corrupting some Outlook databases, so they pulled it back. It's no longer available for auto update. It will be available again. If you want it, you can manually go get it from Microsoft's website. My recommendation is wait a week or two, especially if you're using Outlook. Separately, I'm not a fan of Outlook. I find it not to be so well done, but it's only version 1, so in all fairness, by a version 2 or 3, I will definitely take another look at it. I was very happy with Entourage all those years, and I know Word and Excel are really, really good. As for PowerPoint, I do like Keynote better. CS6, Adobe's Creative Suite 6 is just about out. If you purchase Creative Suite 5 after March 26th, it's a free upgrade. Just come in and see us. We'll help you with that, or help you get CS6. There will be no box sets. As of CS5.5, that's it. No more box sets. I predict, especially with the absence of the optical drive coming on the Macs, you're going to see fewer and fewer, if any, box sets. We just upgraded a bunch of software for a customer of ours, and about half of it came boxed, the other half didn't. And most of the stuff that did come boxed, we were told that was it. There won't be another version that's boxed. It's an interesting twist. I definitely like it. FileMaker 12 has come out. Most of the changes that you can see are graphics. You can do things like gradients and fancier layouts. Very nice. FileMaker 12, if you're doing your design on the computer, you can now bring up an iPad or iPod, iPhone, iOS template so you can see the screen size that you're working with. So you can design your FileMaker layouts for the iOS devices. FileMaker on iOS is now free. Another nice touch. It was $20, now free. And it can do true multitasking, which means if you're looking at your FileMaker database on the iOS device, and you need to, say, check your email or something, when you go back into FileMaker, you will not have been disconnected from your database. Nice improvement. It made it challenging to use. And the other change that it has is it's faster, especially if it's running on the server in the back end. The server side of FileMaker has been significantly speed improved. Moving on, Suitcase Fusion 4 has been released. Suitcase has long been one of the leading font management products, especially if you use a lot of fonts. You're a designer using Adobe Suites, Quark, whatever it is, and you have a lot of fonts. If you wanted to activate or deactivate your fonts, you would have to quit whatever app it was, go into Suitcase, activate the ones you wanted, go back into the app. Now you can preview and activate fonts from directly within Adobe and other apps. Very nice little touch if you use a lot of fonts. Safari, a little bit of Safari news, although it's all Mountain Lion related. Apple, as you know from the fight with Adobe, is a strong supporter of HTML5. The latest version of Safari that's out with the Mountain Lion developer preview has support for HTML5's advanced audio capabilities, which will allow a lot more sound to come from websites. Also in Safari news, the FTC, it turns out, might fine Google for bypassing Safari's privacy controls. If you remember a couple of months ago, it was found out that Google was setting cookies in Safari even if you had said not to do it in your settings. That turned out Google got in a lot of trouble for that around the world, and now it looks like the FTC may fine Google. Interesting. Chrome, also interestingly, under the hood, has a lot of code in common with Safari. I wonder if they did it on their own browser. More software, the iTunes Store interface. Apple won a patent on the iTunes Store interface. That lets Apple control the presentation of apps and songs and other things for download to your computer and then onto devices. I'm not such a huge fan of that. All these different companies are patenting ideas. Well, it makes sense to patent it and get something for it. Certain things need to be out there in the public domain. Apple has a lot of great ideas, so do a lot of other companies, and everybody wants to use them. I could see having a patent for a short time for things like that, kind of the way certain drugs, the patents only last for a short time, and then you can have generics and other manufacturers can make these drugs. It's the same idea. Some of these patents that go back 30, 40 years for things, it's just not fair to users who want more capable things in their, more capable electronics, software, whatever. Last time we spoke about Google's Project Glass, where they have glasses that will show you a little screen like right in the corner by the lens, but you can see information. Oakley, a common goggles manufacturer, they make very nice glasses, Oakley, has a pair of goggles that are in prototype right now that would Bluetooth link to your smartphone, your iPhone. And I'm not sure what it will do. So far, it's supposed to give you sports scores, but it would be nice to be walking down the street and have it translate, like say you're in another country, it would translate the signs that you read into English, or if you're reading a piece of paper like this in another language, it would just translate as you went. Look up things that you see. It could be very nice to have an interface like that, as long as you can learn to look through it. But the human eye is very capable. Pilots can look through their HUD displays on the cockpits of their jets and still see what's going on around them. You're able to look at what you want to look at. I'm interested in this technology. I'd love to have a little display on my sunglasses, tell me what's going on, and give me information that I want. Although I don't want a web search like that. Searching needs a huge improvement to know what I mean for that to really become effective. Moving on, Apple's quarterly results are expected tomorrow. The first quarter results, these are the first quarter results that will reflect the new iPad, and the first quarter completely without Steve. So it'll be interesting to see how the results are. I suspect they're going to be very good as Apple's breakneck growth continues. The stock has gone up something like 33% this year alone, which is amazing. Wish I owned some. Final thing, Oregon. Apple's building a new data center akin to the one in North Carolina. And it's interesting the amount of pull that Apple has. Apple got a 15-year property tax exemption from the state and the county. Apple's requirements in order to earn this exemption were to spend $250 million or more, but at least $250 million on the property. And I'm sure that's not a big deal with all the servers and just the building itself, the solar farm and all the other environmental things, the fuel cell farm, if they do what they did in North Carolina. The other requirement is they must have at least 35 jobs there that pay 150% of the local average salary. Just 35. So that's not huge. I mean, I don't know how many people you need in the data center, but I would think 35 could run it. So Apple, again, they got a great deal. And that's it for today's show. Let me just give a brief recap. We spoke about the Trojan, flashbackcheck.com, check yours out. We spoke about Mac market share and how it continues to grow and grow and grow. We spoke about the iPhone demand continuing to grow. 56% of people who plan to buy a smartphone in the next 90 days are going to get an iPhone. We spoke about some rumors on the new phone and new carriers. We spoke a little bit about the Department of Justice lawsuit. We spoke about the 2.5 quintillion bytes of data that people make daily. Crazy. We spoke about rumors on updated MacBook Pros and iMacs. We spoke about Mountain Lion, Steve Jobs hiring Linus Torvalds or not, multiple Apple IDs and Apple coming out with a solution. We talked about new software coming out, Oakley glasses, I want a pair of those, Apple's quarterly results, and the new Oregon data center. Thank you for watching Apple Talk by Creative Computing. If you would like to suggest a topic or ask a question on our show, please email appletalk@creativecomputing.com. Please visit Creative Computing for all your Apple needs, sales, or service. We are located at 423 Wall Street, across from the Princeton Airport on Route 206. You can call us at 609-683-3MAC. Visit us online at www.creativecomputing.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, join our circle on Google+. We look forward to seeing you. Mention our Apple Talk TV show to any sales staff and receive 10% off accessories.